Okay, so starting another episode of Must Be the Music, I've got with me an amazing friend, poet. One of the things that I've been impressed since knowing him for a long time is how his craft has developed and changed and transformed. So I'm going to bring him in, and he's known as Torpedo Mascaw, but I'll let him introduce himself. Really excited about listening to just understanding his craft, understanding where it came from, the gifting, how he homed it in. So, waiting for him to join in. Yep, he's got his profile picture in there, trying to make a good entry. I think it's actually good. You first put on your profile picture just before when the audio connects, then you bring in the picture.
Yeah, let me. Good to see you, bro.
Yeah.
Let me do the picture.
So, waiting to see you.
Hey.
Okay.
Good.
And the art form music, words, expression, and stuff. And I think for those of us who are consumers, it's a good insight to understand what it's like for the performers and the artist, where the talent comes from, what it's like performing, and where you draw inspiration from. So, and then also, I think one of the things that is really key in this day and age is about making an income from it. A lot has changed in over years with the digital market. In some ways, it's made it easier for people to succeed and make a living. In some areas, it's hampered some people's income. So that would be sort of the end. We'll talk about the business side of that. But if we start off, I mean, I introduced you as someone I went to secondary school with, and there was little performance there, but there was. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here. Sorry, the thing just goes off. I'll come
Okay,
back
that's right. When he comes back on, yeah. So there was little performance, but there was lots of there was a character who I always knew was the sort of the funny guy in our group and stuff. But where do you, when you look back at your talents and your gifting now, where did it start from? Where did it come from?
on. Hmm, that's. Do you know you're the first person to have actually asked me that? Where did it start from? Wow. I think when back in school. Back in school, I just knew I had this thing about words and music, but I just didn't know how to express it. So it had kind of been bottled up for a long time. I went to university in Benin and I noticed that I could MC and go for parties. And as an offshoot of that, of MCing, I realized that if I put in my kind of music that I liked, the
Mm.
place just always exploded. And from there, I started making money from that. And then I now quit it thinking it was a childish behavior, behavioral pattern, according to my mom. That's a very childish thing to do. You can't live on this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. So I wore the suit and tie and I went corporate for the next 10 years. I did telecommunications, I was in Econet Wireless, and
Okay,
I
no,
did
so
that.
I mean, okay, so we'll get there, but I guess going back though, so when what kind of stuff were you interested in, say, secondary school? Because that's like a coming of age type of year. So when we're thinking about that time, what were the influences that you were really drawn to?
So to be honest, I was really extremely shy. So I just knew I loved music, but people around me kept on pushing me. Like for instance, I don't know if you remember or you weren't. I think you were a day student then, but I went for something called FGCL. So competition where the junior ones, those poor houses then would bring out two students who
Okay.
would, dance and pose and parade fashion, and
Yeah,
hopefully they'll become crowned master FGCL.
yeah, I
And
remember
for
that. Yeah.
I represented my house 2 years. And I'd look at them, fussing over me, telling me that don't worry, just be yourself, just dance, things we've seen you do when you're not watching. And I'd be wondering, what are these guys? I'm a fraud, though. I'm not, that's all I kept on thinking. And when I lost both times, meaning one time I think I came fifth, and the other time I came sixth, and that was because the last person disappeared, But I was like, I knew these guys were fapping around, but they were not. If not that I now became a senior and I lost all interest in that, they would have put me for the next year for that same Master FGCL, convinced that one way or the other I would, not bring back the cup or win, but come second or third.
Yeah.
Anyway, so people kind of pushed me. Even when I got to school, one guy who was the head of the club said, "No, you have to join the club," you know. So I just used to do my thing, which was normal, but yeah. So it was when I left school and I abandoned the playful gestures and went into, that's what they called it then. I now went into the corporate life, settled life, get married, have children, the whole works,
Yeah.
And I did that for about 10 years. And then I put it in one of my spoken word pieces. I woke up. Some people described it as a midlife crisis, but I just woke up and said, you know what? I want to do that which I can do. So.
Okay, no. So I mean, we're coming from a, because and I've spoken to others during that time in our school and secondary school. I think there was a lot of influence from you either got influenced by R&B or hip hop or pop music in those days.
Yeah.
Were you influenced by, was there any type of music around that you were really into that you thought, wow, I'd love to get into this, or at that point that you were really passionate about?
Yeah. To be honest, though, so the music really played a strong part. The rap, the R&B. We all knew the latest songs. I can still sing "Silent Morning."
Yeah. We had the
right
book.
thing to rap. Yeah, and do the right thing, and all the things. So I really, really liked that, and everybody wanted to be one of them stars, but it was like a fickle dream. But just follow the trend as it was. It was while I was in the middle of that those guys now say, you're very good at mimicking or dancing. Yeah. So why don't you go for Master FGCL? I'm like, no. So yeah, the music and the rap and the lifestyle, it got to everyone. We were all kids, but it's the level to which we now receive that's the difference.
Yeah.
So some people, they liked it, they just wanted to know the latest songs, but they never really learned the lyrics, they never learned the dance, they never really, but we did, so maybe the passion had been ignited a long time ago.
But did you at any time, because I've spoken to a few others who went to school and are in the profession now, did you at any time think, I could make a career out of this if the opportunity was there?
No, not in secondary school, not in university.
Okay.
Even when I started eventually,
yeah.
I honestly didn't think it was going to be a career. I was just being rebellious that, that thing I wanted to do, there were three things. One was go for a girl called Foluke Gwinle. She was in my secondary school. I loved her to bits, and I never once asked her out. It hurts me till today. I should have asked her, even if she'd said no, it would have helped. But anyway, and then the other thing was that whole music thing, rap. Let me see where it's going to take me. Let me try. Yeah. So that was when I began to try, and the rest, they say, is history.
Well, so I know you mentioned that you went and did the corporate thing. Now, I do remember meeting you in the early 2000s, and you seemed to be going towards sort of the rap, and the Nigerian scene was picking up, and I thought you were going into that type of rap sort of music.
Yes. So what happened was I was looking for validation. So all along, this talent, like I said, I wasn't really sure of it. I just suspected it was there, but I never really knew. So these guys, Sprite came to Africa. They were looking for the best MC on the continent, rap,
Okay.
and they were gonna choose one after a series of competitions, one from Nigeria, one from Lagos. Then you'd all go to South Africa. Anyway, cut a long story short, the grand prize was 10,000 US dollars, and that's what
Wow.
I heard. And I'm like, what? I'm going for that. The best are gonna be there, And from like 300 contestants, I they whittled it down to eight in
Mm.
Nigeria.
Wow.
When it became eight, and MTV, of course, for partnering with this. So
Yeah.
MTV now switched on the cameras and it became a whole show.
Wow.
Meanwhile, when I went there undercover. I just wanted to see if I was really good and if I could last and so on and so forth. So when the cameras came out, I was so shy and I was still corporate at the time. I
Okay.
didn't think it felt like a clash of interest. So I really didn't want to do it. But one of
Wow.
the producers was like, go ahead, so on and so forth. So I did, and I came third, you
Wow.
know. And I just believe that, you know what, it actually means that, I'm actually good at this. And let me find a way of, showing what I had.
But then, so at that point now, so you were doing what was your influence in the music that you were performing at that stage of things?
At that stage, it was mostly a congruent of the stuff I'd heard growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So by this time, I was now beginning to flex my music, like do freestyle battles, which is what brought me to that competition.
Yeah.
And then the music of the day, and I was mixing that, to bring out what I was. So one of the things I discovered was I could create great music, like just listen to something, go into a studio and recreate something that is, kind of like what the Chinese were doing first, that they'd go and study the computer and then go back
Yeah.
and come up with their version. So, and it was amazing. So
Mm.
those were my influences: rap of the past, the music I grew up with, my
Yeah.
parents, ABBA, Bonnie M, and all of that, the roots, and then the music of the time, which was now the 80s, which is old school for now. Mix that,
Yeah.
then just brought out my own thing.
So at that point, then, so after you coming third, did family find out what was going on? Did friends? What was the
Um,
reaction?
yeah, so because MTV got involved and it was an Africa-wide competition, um, people were calling me all over the continent. "Oh, wait, are you somebody called Torpedo Mascaw? Oh my God, was that you? And yeah, so that kind of like did two things. First of all, it made me aware that, look, this world is very small, and people are beginning to accept you for who you are. And then
Mm.
it now brought a clash with my family and my ideals. So before it was hidden, underneath, and by the time MTV splashed it all over, my family came. I was married at the time, and they were like, how, how can you go and disgrace our souls like this? Why? What? Why? And I'm like, I just wanted to try, but anyway, it kind of like brought me out of the closet, so to speak,
Yeah.
and being very stubborn. When everybody says, "Oh, you can't do it," I wish they'd said you can. I'm sure I'd have dropped it after a while, but because they said you can't and you mustn't, I found myself embracing it even stronger.
Yeah, but and what is fascinating, because I've spoken to four other people who have same Nigerian heritage and stuff, and it was the same thing as familiar, where the parents are, no, this is the road we've got for you. This is how you keep the family name, and but on the other side there was this passion that they knew there was inside that had to come out, but they didn't understand where it was from, and they said, look, if I don't get this out, I'm going to explode. And what is fascinating to hear from you, that here's your family and friends saying, okay, go back to work, go back to the telecoms field, make the money, and have a career like everyone else. And you are taking this very, what is at that time still unconventional routes, because let's not mistake it, most people who were getting into the entertainment industry didn't, the family's background and education and stuff were quite different at that stage. So it didn't seem as a common route. It didn't seem as a normal route, not like here in the West. If you want to be a singer and artist, your family are like taking you to music lessons and stuff. earlier
Yeah.
age. So, but for the families that we were from, that was almost like a sort of a taboo. You know, we were doing a wedding singer. So here you are at loggerheads with your family. What was
Yeah.
it that said, okay, how do I need to follow my dream despite my family? What was that moment like?
So there's an old Greek tale that talks about an admiral who gets to an island. I can't remember it now. And immediately he gets there, he orders everyone off the ship and he burns the ship.
Wow.
And the men were like, "Why did you burn the ship?" And he's like, "Because there's no going back. Now that we're here, we're going all the way, or we're gonna die trying." So that's what I did. I burnt the ship. So I left my job midway through. My marriage crashed midway through. My family were like, if we get hold of him, we can. He's definitely bipolar, so we will get him restrained. And I actually found myself running away from them and telling them that no, no. So the fire for me was I needed to succeed just to let them know that I wasn't supposed to be, in an institution of some sort. Because who would do that? Who would, if I was failing at my career was taking off. I was being touted as a possible replacement for the MD, the future guy.
Mm.
So why would, at that point in time, would you take such a step? And this step, there's obviously no padding. Like if you went on and opened up a studio and had employees, then they'd be like, okay, okay, okay. But you're becoming an ordinary, unknown artist. Who's going to hire you? Where you going to, how you going to feed? You will surely die. And a lot of friends and the family kept funds away from me, reminding me that my death was at my own hands, that what you did this to you. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, we're not going to help you with any money because you did this to you. Yeah, so it was that.
So I think then, okay, you made the decision, you burnt your ship. Now, did you see the horizon? If you were a country singer, you go to Nashville. If you were in hip hop, you go to either Atlanta, New York, or LA. So if you were in classical music, you come to London, or theatre, you go to Broadway. So there are avenues, there are places you can go. Now, in where Nigeria was in the music scene at that stage, did you have a sense of this is the direction, or what was it that you thought, or where did you
So
think?
my vision, I called it Freedom Hall, Freedom Studios, Freedom Records, and Freedom. Now it's Freedom Hall Arts Institution, which is an NGO for education. Anyway, that's another thing. So what happened was I recognized that, look, this is a battle, and what I was fighting for at this time. This was now burning the ship and defining where I was going. That, look, I want people who are like me all over the African continent, who they have a gift, they have a talent, but they don't know what to do with it. And society, I gave a TED talk the other day and I told them the society has programmed you along a certain path, and that path is supposed to be successful if you go through that path. So where I was going was taking people and asking, look, will you come with me? Will we all fight for this freedom to be ourselves, to run our music, to be artistic and survive by it? So that's why the name Freedom Hall, Freedom Studios all came about, because of that whole, we'll do it together. There's a part in the Bible, and I get my inspiration from stories in the Bible where David was, leaving town, and he called all the disgruntled debtors, invaders, just the bad guys, the weak guys in society, and said, hey guys, let's all band together. And later on, chapters later in the Bible, these guys are known as the mighty men of David. They had evolved into an army and a community of people who were ready to just break all the norm. So that was my clarion call, and that's what I wanted to do then. So I did. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So, but I'm just thinking now. So you've made the decision. You've left the family, but where was the initial before you created Freedom Hall and stuff? Where was the path? What did you end up doing? Did you, you know?
There was no path. There was just rebellion. There was just, look, I'm gonna do this. Now I can always look back and lie that, oh, I knew what I was doing. I had it all mapped out, and I was a very focused gentleman as a youth. I'd be lying, and it's too close to Sunday to do that. So let me just do the truth. I had no idea, honestly speaking. All I knew was that, look, I wanted to do something. Now, people go to certain places where they feel the light is, like the way
Yeah.
music hip hop would go to Atlanta,
Mm,
or you know people would go to India, wherever they felt the influence they were following was. But because I hadn't really seen anything like what I imagined, I hadn't seen a place where people would go to, where they'd be free to just do their own. I've done a short introduction video. It's on YouTube. It's called Freedom Hall Introduction. Maybe later on you play it. And in that video, it's a short documentary, 4 minutes long, to tell people that, look, we just want a place where everyone who feels he has a gift or is talented in any way can come
mm,
to and be find home. So we even envisaged a building, a park, a village, an area where people would do sports just in that avenue. Now in the Western, I know in New York there's a school called Gouliard.
yeah.
In Canada, there's a community for the arts where talented people from all over Ontario, all over Canada, and all the provinces would come together, and it was amazing what came out of it. But in Africa, there was something similar in South Africa, but there's nowhere else. So I wanted a community or a group of people who had, gifts in certain ways. I even did a comic kind of thing where I likened them to the X-Men,
X-Men, I was
where
gonna
people,
say. Yeah.
yeah, where people with gifts and talents, where they've been rejected and are even hunted by other people in other places, they all come together, and together they're amazing.
Yeah. No, but here we go again, because I'm here, because, and the reason why this is important, because you might have aspiring songwriters, singers, poets, and creative people have facing this sort of crossroad with their family and their sort of what they thought was their destination, having to make a change, and but at that point in time, you've
You know
made
what?
that decision. But it's like, okay, did you have contacts from the talent show that you had? Did MTV Africa say
Oh,
we'll hook you up?
okay.
I mean, you must be,
Okay,
because
so what happened? You're right, actually. So what broke the camel's back was a talent show called Idols. American
yeah,
Idols.
yeah,
So they had the first franchise, and my company bought the first franchise.
you're a telecoms company when you were working.
Yes, my telecoms company.
Yeah,
So my job at the time was this project. I managed it. So one of the things I was supposed to do, or I did, was go to several African countries, because it was supposed to be West Africa. It actually was West African Idol, but it was supposed to actually be the whole West Africa.
okay,
So I went with a couple of others as a team to do reconnaissance, where
mm,
we'd go there and get ready for the company when they came, get
mm,
local talent, get producers, what have you, just so that when they come, it'll be easier. And
mm,
guess what I saw on the ground? I was in Senegal, I was in Dakar, I was in like 9 West African countries, and the talent out there was amazing. I could not believe it. I could not
mm,
believe what I was seeing. It
mm,
was just, and we hadn't even started the show. Just
mm.
the thought of it, and people were coming up. Guess what? In Nigeria at the time, they no longer exist. There were these malams. They go around shouting in front of your window, "Come buy paper, come buy paper." So they used to buy used papers,
Yeah, yeah,
old
yeah,
bottles.
yeah.
Yeah,
Remember that?
they no longer go around now.
Okay.
In Dakar, in Senegal, men go around like that singing, but they're selling fruits. In Nigeria, only girls and
Yeah.
women sell fruits. But in Dakar, the men sell fruits and what have you. They put it
Okay.
on their head, and then they have this song they sing, uh, and it's Namdi. I don't know the words, but it was like heaven. The same way those guys used to sing, "Come by paper, come by."
Yeah.
These guys had their own song, and they all sounded like Yusu Undu. They all sounded amazing. Guess
Wow.
what? They had no idea how amazing it was. I was like, if the world could hear
Hmm.
and see this, to me, that was like a Wakanda moment. Anyway, I get back to Nigeria and my headquarters, all excited, and they were like, "Oh, we're so sorry, Mr. Sadiq. We forgot you were out there in the field. We've come to a decision as a company. We can't afford all the West Africa, so we're going to do three centers in Nigeria, one in Ghana, and that would be every other person should come from West Africa. That would be our West African idol." So I'm like, "Wow, you guys know?" They're like, "Well, it's resources and a budget thing." Cut a long story short, it happened like that. The winner of that competition was Timmy Dakolo, followed by a lady called Omawumi. Now, I managed that. I saw the talent on ground, and I knew Namde. I knew immediately that this is what I really wanted to do. I
Okay.
wanted to help people's talent. I felt most alive when I was seeing people coming on and I could help them, and then even help myself, you know, become
Yeah. Help yourself.
my dreams.
Okay. And so, so being that close now, a lot of people who work in the music industry and stuff, they have one
Yeah.
foot in earning their income because they're close to the source, while they're moonlighting at night doing their stuff. So that's they're not losing the income, but they're using the connections to get themselves through.
Which is
You
what
decided to,
my
oh,
people advise.
yeah. So, but you decided now cut this and just go on my
Yeah, yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I had been mulling over it for like 2 years. The thing had been, and the more I wanted to do it, the more I got promoted. So by the time I finally did it, I'd become a senior manager in charge of events and sponsorships. This was a very high position for a Nigerian in the company. So it was a huge jump. Let's just say that. If I was less positioned, the transition to poverty won't have been so bad.
Yeah,
But because I had gone so high up, it was
yeah.
a huge. It actually broke my knees for a couple. The jump broke my knees for a couple of months. When I
Wow.
realized, a couple of things. So yeah, pretty much that. I'd been mulling over it, and if I hadn't done it at that time, I would have kept on procrastinating, and
Okay.
life would have browbeating me into staying there. I have a spoken word piece where you are trapped in success,
Mm,
where you're trapped in success. If you
mm,
fail, it's fine, it means you can start. But what
mm,
if you don't fail? What
mm,
if you're very good at what you're not supposed to be doing?
mm,
Then how do you know? What do you
mm.
do?
Yeah, and what's fascinating by what you're saying, and it's resonant with a lot of art people who are in the art field, is that there's something natural, a fire burning in that you can't quench out, because to the rest of us, it's like what a ludicrous decision to quit a very successful position and job, um, in order to follow a dream, which it's even if there was a path at the time, it's still it's a very small way to get through. But what I'm hearing, what is really inspiring is that, but if it's a fire burning within you, it unless you go through it, it wouldn't quench out, and nothing would be
Yes.
the same. So that's really inspirational. So now, I think for us, it's very much on the very practical stuff. What did you do next? Did you start to look for clubs to perform? Did you start to go into
So
make an album? What were the small things you did before you?
So the next thing I did was on my travels, I had found out that Nigeria was very popular in the rest of Africa, but it was popular based on the content. So I was in Kenya, and one guy comes to me and says, "I know you very well. You look like Peter Doche or Ramsey Noah. All of you in Nigeria, you use jazz. You use jazz." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So like, you're all witch doctors. You use jazz. I know. Your film. And I'm like, where did you get that from? They're like, your films can't all be telling lies.
Nollywood.
So, yes. So Nollywood had colored the rest of Africa to believe that all, if not 92% of Nigerians were into jazz because all the movies coming out, and the guy was telling me that all your movies can't be lying now. Come on, I mean, they all couldn't have decided that we tell a grand lie, all of them, and there were a lot of movies at the time. So
Mm.
anyway, when I got back to Nigeria, I was like, you know what? Let's let's do great music. Let's not complain about it. Let's do something about it. So Freedom Studios was born. I was still working at the time. I was
Okay.
still with the company. So we
Mm.
started Freedom Studios then, and Freedom Studios was like a kitchen where, you know what, you're saying the content is bad, do your own. So we started making movies, we made music. I had
Oh.
3 albums. We executive produced people that had talent, and so on and so forth. So I went right into it. Immediately I got back convinced that, look, if you don't do it, nowhere else. But we now came to this harsh reality where we found out that you can make the best content music film, but if nobody sees it,
Mm.
you've made nothing. So
Mm.
we had these great albums. Oh my God, they were amazing. Even now, thinking about it, I have goosebumps. They were so good, but no one saw them because the platform to get it out needed funding.
Mm.
I was in telecoms and I could, but the I was using ringtones and all of that, but
Okay.
people were only downloading songs that were popular and that they knew.
Yeah.
All the other ones on the platform were not getting any airplay and no money.
Mm.
So that was when I decided to start Freedom Hall, which was supposed to be a place where the movies will be viewed. Those kind of alternative movie parks
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
have the box office places, then you
Mm.
have some other where they show all these movies, independent movies that
Yeah.
they don't. Yeah. So and they have a large following, especially in the US.
Yeah.
you know, London. So I was like, why not do that here? Those are our movies that we believe in, that had sense, that was, had depth, that no one was seeing. Let's just create a hall or a place where that would be the driving force.
Mm.
So we took over a place, and in that place was just supposed to be showing movies and films. But the next thing, we started doing music, poetry, and the place took on a life of its own. I think
So,
we only showed 2 movies the whole time. We stayed there for 4 years. Then we moved to another venue and so on. We only showed 2 movies at the beginning by our guys. After that, the music, the poetry, the comedy, the gifts, they all exploded. And we thought that, how much talent can be out there? How long can this go, week in, week out? I mean, there can't be that many people with talent.
mm.
So what we initially wanted to do was, by the time we exhaust everyone in Lagos that has talent, then we'll come back. Guess what? It never ended.
But so the
Went,
question then
went.
becomes, because one of the things I'm seeing and hearing is that you took a lot from what you learned in the corporate field to be able to
Yes, I
put
did.
structure in place,
I
which was
did.
key. But then when did you decide, okay, apart from building this sort of center for others, that I'll actually also be one of the people, the artists? Because I'm hearing more the sort of structural side that you were
Yeah.
really being
So
able to set up.
we one of the things that was a draw point for the whole, or for the movement, because it really became a movement, was the fact that I used to come and perform there. So a lot of people just loved my spoken word and the way I could weave it into the whole show. So I would MC the shows, and
Okay.
these were like performances, so to speak. So I really wasn't paying attention to me. I was
Mm.
really focused on the other people. Now it was the other people and others who were watching me, kind of like in secondary school, while I was busy just faffing around. They were like, no, 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 this guy. So they were the ones that came and say, hey, 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 can you do this with me? Can you collaborate? Can you MC this?
Mm.
So the gifts kind of made room for me. I know we read that about, and we see a scripture that says, "See a man diligent in his ways, and he won't stand before mere men; he will stand before kings."
Hmm.
But it also says that a man's gift will make room for him, will
Okay.
make a way. And I think the old Hebrew or Greek says it will make a living for him.
Okay.
So what happened was the more I did that, even though I wasn't trying to do me, the me came out and other people were like, "Oh my God, you need to do this." I was touched one day when a lady comes and she's crying, and I'm like, "Ma'am, I hope my piece wasn't so bad that it brings tears to your eyes." And she's like, "No, this is the best thing she's heard in, and she would love for me to, MC and do this at her wedding." And I thought she was just being, excited by the moment, only
Yeah.
for the next day, this 6'2" guy, very black, comes and says, "I'm her husband, fiance, and she has said you are the man, so you are the man." And honestly, I wasn't intimidated by his size or his blackness. I was really doing it for the love, but I did it nonetheless. And that was kind of like the wedding at Cana, because when I did that, the whole place erupted. People were falling over themselves. Do you know that they were congratulating me at the end of that wedding? Like, I actually got married. I was wondering what's the correlation between, but people were like, "Well, oh my God." They were giving me gifts. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." So, and then for the next 4 months, every weekend, and I'm not exaggerating, it's too close to Sunday, I had a gig emceeing, all over the country. I even did a guy's burial, a guy's 70th, and I was very confused. How do you MC a burial? Like, who's the audience? And I mean, you can't be cracking jokes. I really didn't want to, but
Yeah.
the money and they insisted that the guy who died, knew me. And I was like, well, anyway, I did it. And just to show you the diversity of the things that people called me to do. So I didn't go searching for becoming an MC or doing these collaborations of poetry. They
Okay.
kind of called me out.
And you were getting paid for it, so it wasn't like you're going to do
I
this
was
for.
getting paid humongous amounts. Like at
Okay.
that wedding, at let's just call it the wedding at Cana. That's that lady that came and said, "Oh my God, this is
Yeah.
amazing." I needed a car. I needed a car to take away the gifts. I even suspect by the content of some of the gifts that were meant for the couple were then given to me, because I don't know what use I have for a cooler as an as an MC, or some cooking utensils. But the idea was the giving and the love and the appreciation. So that kind of spurred me, kind of established the fact that, wait a minute, I'm actually good at this. And if I do this my way, it could, because prior to that, I'd done a couple of MCings, but I'd done it according to the way I heard people do it, very robotic and mechanical.
Mm.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
But because the lady had seen me in my element, and it was my element she was asking for, when I
Mm.
went to this wedding at Cana, so to speak, I did it my way,
Mm.
because that the person that called me wanted it. And guess what? My way was the highway. Sorry for I just had to throw that. I'm
No.
sorry.
You know what? I
I've
think one of
always
the
wanted
I mean, what is fascinating is the fact that I could now see when working at our telecoms company, going to a place like Dakar in Senegal and seeing the towns around and being inspired, and then saying, okay, how do we showcase this? Because it is amazing when you do see people out the woodworks with so much talent. And so you said you wanted to create a sort of a mecca for art
yes.
history in Nigeria. And then it's amazing how this gifting that was in you had to come out, even if you didn't try and find a way out. It had to come out somewhere. It's almost like the universe is saying, "We put it in you. We need to get it out of you." And so it's fascinating how the dots aligned in a place where you were blessing or sort of showcasing others, as the main front person, you became more of the spotlight and stuff. So
Yeah.
after the weddings and the parties and the funerals, what did you then say? Okay, how did you start to think? How can I shape this new?
So I now thought, how could I make money? So we'd become a full movement, and we were thinking, okay, how can we make money from this? You know, how can we help the people who come? So remember, we started at Freedom Studios. Freedom Hall was a showcase, but instead it started showcasing people's human beings. And then now came Freedom Records. So remember, I had a background in telecoms, which I'd left by this time. So I said, you know what, the way forward is content for telecoms. Let's get this music, put it as ringtones, ringback tones, caller IDs. And people didn't really know too much about that at the time, but because I'd been exposed to that, you know, I signed the agreement and put the people on. So I got everybody in a group, formed Freedom Records as a label, but it was an online, you know, digital distribution platform.
Okay.
So what we did was we packaged the music, we packaged the artists, and then we kind of distributed them, and then whatever funds we got from that, we now did that. So like I said, the challenge for that was by the time we put them on the platforms, people were downloading music by other artists, Two-Face, what have you, that they knew were popular. But these guys were alternative. They were great. Anyone that heard them was always like, oh my God, is this a Nigerian? Is this an African? But we couldn't get them on the grand national stage where they could make money. Some of them made money in irregular places, like because, you know, I was using mobile networks and they were available in like 18 African countries.
Okay.
So one of my artists, for instance, in Mozambique, her song was like a national anthem. She has never been to Mozambique, has had no relative or anything there. But the song just, we really don't understand how it happens, but it just caught fire, and the monies paid was enough for almost everyone. You know, so later on we started using that as a chart. So for instance, now that lady is going to do an African tour based on the reception of her songs in a certain country, and we found out that different songs or different sounds resonate differently in different countries. Like, you know, now we have the South African vibe, you have the Congo vibe, you have the West African. So your song unknowingly could elicit a vibe of the land, even though you're not there. So anyway, we did that for a bit, but because it wasn't, you know, yielding what the artists and every one of them that signed to the label, the expectation was very high that within, based on what was going on in Freedom Hall, give it to maybe 2-3 weeks tops, in Hollywood, or you know the way they'd be excited when they signed. You know, I tried to tell them, you know, temper down the expectations. And no, this is not one of those things. One guy even asked me for the car keys. I'm like, what, my car keys? He's like, no. When you sign from a label, I will say, you should know this now. When you sign, you give a car key. He now calls some others that even got houses and flats. I told him I was in a rental, as in at the time I'm in a caravan. So I don't know what you're talking about. Even I don't have a house. You know, what are you talking about? So, but that was the expectation. So we did that for a bit, and there were some successes, but generally it failed. So we moved on to the Arts Foundation, Freedom Hall Arts Foundation, which is like this, the Cooley School, the X-Men, you know, just get people, invest in the people. Then we were looking at the content, but we're now looking at the people, especially the younger ones. So our parents they really meant the best for us, but they were really kind of like the problem. You know, I've traced most successful people globally, the Venus Williams, the Beyonce Knowles, Tiger Woods, John, all of them, their parents saw at a young age that this guy, let's put them through. And they started young, and before long, the world celebrates them. Michael Jackson.
I mean, Lewis Hamilton.
So now I'm saying that our parents, I remember my father telling me, no, no, no. First of all, get your degree as a doctor so that you always have something to fall back on. If this your sing or whatever it is you are doing, karaoke doesn't work, you always have that so that you won't die of starvation. So they made me spend another 10 years getting a certificate I knew I wasn't going to use, but they meant the best. They really wanted me to not die
Yeah.
as, a Bar Beach or Mali singer, which is what they thought I was becoming, So, yeah, but I'm saying now that, well, maybe our generation might have, missed it, but let
Yeah.
our kids and the younger ones not
Mm.
have to face that. Now, football and music seems to have done to inspire people. So
Mm.
now it's not such a, you said that earlier on in our interview, that it's not, such a crazy thing now. If
Yeah.
your child says, I want to be a musician, I want to be a footballer, I want to be a
Mm.
comedian, nobody's really going to laugh like the way they laughed
Yeah, they
then.
did back
So,
then. But
yeah,
is there market now? So, and I think this is, as we always throw to in. I guess the last part is always about the financials
the
part of it.
financial part.
So
Yeah.
you spoke earlier about trying to get the content digitalized, and that had a struggle because you didn't have the promotional background backing at that time. So how then, if somebody's getting into the arts, do you then start to say, okay, do you focus on the live performance and the gate receipts, or do you still try and find avenues digitally and even on network TV or cable?
Okay, so what we do is like a three-pronged approach. There's a guy in the Bible, I always use that. His name is Nehemiah, and he wanted to build a wall, and the wall was for the people. But guess what? Some of the people were like, "No, you can't come and build this wall. No, 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 no." It's just like when we wanted to build telecommunications masts in some villages. The villagers were the ones opposing us putting it there. That no, you have to pay us to give you the server. We're like, what? So Nehemiah and his gang decided that they would build, but also arm themselves with spears so that they can fight off those people while building at the same time. So it's a
Mm,
kind of approach we did as well to this. So while we're still building, which is looking for alternative energy or different forms of distribution. Now the globalization of platforms has made things so much more easier. Now we have a global platform. We have YouTube. We have social media
mm,
that a speck somewhere in the Niger Delta and put him on the world stage based on views. So we were looking at those avenues, and that's one of them.
mm,
Second is your live performances, which is really was the bread and butter prior to this. You know, your bread and butter. Thirdly, royalties. Now, there's
mm,
obviously the reason why the global community ignored the continent, well, some parts like Nigeria, was because they weren't organized. This lack of organization, this lack of transparency in terms of moving figures and numbers that would translate into the money they pay you is
mm,
non-existent. And where there's chaos, nothing can happen.
mm,
Jesus was telling people 5,000 be preaching a rally for a while, and he said, "Hey, hey, hey, everybody, sit down in groups of 50, and you will see the wonder of God." He could have told them to line up, but he arranged and organized them, and that way it was easier to distribute, and that way it was even easier to count the waste, which was later recycled. But that's another story. So the first thing was organizing the people. Here, they're not organized. We have the numbers, but the numbers are like water in a basket if we don't
mm.
sit in groups of 50. So that's what while we're still trying to do that, if we can organize ourselves, then that's a route. While we're doing that, let's get the live performances and then let's get the partnerships. So one of my strengths in the records was my relationship with telecommunication companies because I'd worked there for like 10 years.
Mm,
So I knew the sponsorship managers and the process to acquiring this sponsorship. So for the artists that were now climbing up, we
mm,
could reach these for their events. So MTN had these reality shows. They have shows they do in the East to promote their products and services. So we
Mm.
put our artists on it. Airtel sponsored a whole Big Brother Nigeria, or was it Africa? Nigeria. And all the music that was played in the house,
Wow.
we provided it from our content and platform. And
Wow.
of course, we played the popular ones, but we played a lot of our artists that we knew were good, but just didn't have the exposure.
Mm.
And what we got was amazing. That was pretty much money begins to come to trickle. But now we're actually tired of the trickle and we're waiting for the rain. Ever
Okay.
since the Jay Z's and the Kanye's entered billionaire status based on their affiliations, and not just the music, but their merchandising and franchising. Based
Mm.
on that, they've been able to break, previously, glass ceilings and become billionaires.
Mm.
So that's where we're targeting now. We have the numbers. All we need to do is to organize. And by the time we organize properly, everybody will get fed and there'll be extra to recycle. 12
I
baskets.
think and so I think one of the things as we wrap up is that I'm seeing is how important it is to have the business acumen in this industry, because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you do not have the sort of business side of it, somebody else will take advantage of your talent, and and we've countless stories of artists and stuff who did
To
all the
be
work.
honest, that was also old school. Now, before, our generation believed in where your talent is, and I'm saying now that you don't even have to really have that business sense. It's one of the mistakes our parents made. Just be aware that there's a need for it. Do you understand? You don't have to be. You can just be talented in your music,
Yeah.
and of course, before you'd be handicapped if you didn't know how to do the business. But the thing is, you didn't know that there was a business to do. So now that you know, even if you can't do it, you can still get the business done. That's what we're saying. Creating awareness, be aware that there is a business to this. If you know it's there and you take advantage of people who already have the system, then you can take advantage of it.
Mm. Yeah, but that's something that you, from your own experience working in the telecoms field, was able to understand and move around and think big,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to
That's
being
because of my
the
environment.
guy, yeah, being the guy in
I'm just saying
Senegal.
that that was unique to me. Yeah, that was unique to me. But I'm saying that if everybody else doesn't have an opportunity to do that, you're not at a loss.
Yeah,
Because in this world where information is at your fingertips,
yeah,
you can just be aware that there's a need for it. All right.
yeah.
So you can be Tracy Chapman and have no idea what, and before you'd be handicapped, but in the now, you don't have to be, because you
Mm.
just know that you need to just focus on that as well.
I think so. Finally, I guess, do you guys then start thinking about, because there is, um, I think in not just with the movement of Black Lives Matter and stuff, but there's been prior to that, Bonner Boy, over here got um, we've got a number. I can't remember his name stuff, but we've got a number of artists who have started to cross. So you mentioned Jay-Z and Kanye, but there's a lot of African, um, Davido, Wizkid, who,
Yeah, Davido, Wizkid, yeah,
yeah,
Mr. E.
they're making they're making their names out here, but it seems as if there is an appreciation of African music. There's appreciation of culture,
On the
Black African
global
culture.
stage.
And I'm wondering,
Hello?
how are you looking to take your product? Have you tried to then see how do we take it out of Africa, Nigerian Africa, and say how do we now come, do a European tour, do a North American tour,
So
do an Asian tour?
what these guys have done is kind of John the Baptist move. They've just opened the doors. they've opened the possibilities to these things. And now that the door is open, we're just waiting to take advantage of it. It's kind of like the way our movies, Nollywood, opened the doorway to so many other things. Yeah,
Mm.
I've been there. Now, sorry to deviate, but I haven't mentioned one of my personal passions, which is poetry and spoken word. And
Mm.
I found out that as a genre, it was practically non-existent. So I was there when comedy grew from a funny business to a multi-billion naira company, as in platform. Comedians now are laughing to the bank.
Mm.
Sorry for the pun. You
Yeah.
know, having a great time, and they've turned their giftings into a viable income fund. It even is even adding to our GDP, the same way Hollywood adds to California's GDP. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So that is, and I've seen as well where drama and opera not yet, but I want to put spoken word and poetry on that same kind of platform where poets and the art itself can be appreciated so much so that it drives income for the poets and for that as a platform.
Mm. Yeah. No, as I said, that it's very unique what you do because it's almost gives you space to listen, to think, and reflect, and you're not relying so much on music to to
Yeah,
get people in the mood. It is every word seems to have weight, and there are a number of black poets here who actually have started to really make their headway on TV and getting exposure, just because people are now open to diversity and things that they're not really given ear to.
yeah.
Um, so I guess just a final thing I always ask is, before I get to my final question, which is your favorite song and film. Um, Over this, coronavirus, and end of year kind of thing. But when you think about the next 6 to 12 months, what's on the horizon for you and Freedom Hall, Freedom Academy, and Freedom Records and everything?
All right. So this period in mankind's humanity, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is really very unique. And what it's done for me is it's brought out because you need to be creative to be to come out of this creatively, if that makes any sense.
Mm.
This is a very weird situation, and so it's like being thrown, a very bitter piece of lime. So we're trying to squeeze it, squeeze the lemon out of it. So what I'm saying is, right now we've diversified, so to speak, in line with what's currently going on. So
Mm.
me, for instance, now I'm now more of I'm an author and a writer. My
Oh,
books are coming out. I'm doing short stories. I'm writing 3 books.
wow.
Um, one of the 3 books is a short compilation of short stories. I put that on my DP. So while I was doing that, a producer says, "Hey, what can we write a script for a movie,
Mm.
TV series?" So I had to put that on hold and concentrate on this because this is financially rewarding. So for the movement and for the whole, to be honest, we thrive on community. We thrive on people coming together and the energy that people coming together provides.
Mm.
For now, we are flying low, or what they call the word hibernating,
Okay.
hibernating as a group. We're hibernating. People are being encouraged in their various caves to create content as much as they can,
Mm.
while also staying alive, because that is the greatest content you can
Yeah.
create for yourself in this crazy situation we're in. Stay alive,
Mm.
find ways that you can do that, and move forward from there.
Okay. Well, what will happen is, I'll get the link to your organization. I'll put it in the bio of the video, so at least people who can check out
Didn't know. Yeah.
check out all
Check
your
out.
social media and what you've put out before, what you're doing now, and what's still to come. So, always final question is: if you were stuck in a lift, elevator for 2-3 hours, and you had the opportunity to watch a film, what film would you request?
I would request Apocalypto. It,
Apocalypto.
yes, it's a movie by Mel Gibson, and
Okay.
it's
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Aztec Mayan
Yeah.
dynasty about a guy. So for me, that there's some movies I call spiritual, and because apart from the movie itself, it just connotes human living, the
Mm.
transition, and human opposition. So in
Mm.
that movie, the guy is chased throughout the movie. He is practically running for a 2 minutes of the 90-minute movie. And in a way, they say it's a human race, but we
Yeah.
are being chased by society, by demons, by the needs and wants to stay alive. So we keep running. And eventually, the guy, when he gets to a place, he stops running and says, "You know what? Let me tell you who I am." He gets to know who he truly is.
Mm.
Realization. He goes underneath in a mud, and then he rises again. And when he rises again, he now no longer is running, but he
Mm.
confronts his enemy using because it's his home. So a lot of us are in different skins. We're doctors, we're parents, we're fathers and husbands because society and life has put you in that position. You believe that's where you're supposed to be. But
Mm.
ultimately, when you know the reason why you were born, why you're here, and what you're to do, that's getting to know who you are. Then you
Mm.
will turn around and confront these circumstances and begin to live life on your own terms. My
Mm.
spoken word piece calls it you begin to rock steady. You begin to dance with life's rhythms for you.
Mm.
I believe when every human being is born, a song is being played in heaven. It's your life song. And sometimes the music we really like and are moved to are just snippets of that your life song. And you know how songs are, sometimes they break, they go high or whatever it is. But when you begin to hear your life song and you align yourself and dance to its rhythm, it's like learning how to swim and flowing with the current. Oh my God, life becomes less painful and it becomes actually sweet.
Oh my goodness. I, I, I think okay. Before I get to the question, I was going to ask about inspiration, but music-wise, if you had a track to listen to, what would it be? Just the one song that you've always.
I don't want to wait in vain, Bob Marley.
Okay, okay. Now, I think the question I have just as we. Huh?
Yeah, go on, go on.
Yeah, no, the question I have is because I just you just gave a short piece on your poetry, and I'm thinking you're drawing inspirations from a lot of places. What are you doing? Do you read a lot? Are you watching a lot of stuff? Where are you drawing the stuff
I
to feel
I
you?
I draw it from I read a lot or I've read a lot as a child growing up. I couldn't play football. I was too
Yeah,
small.
yeah, I know that. Yeah.
I ended up reading movies and things out of the movies that are just amazing. I'm inspired by people as well. So all of these, my pieces are kind of like that. They're based on things like there's a piece that says there's a me inside of me that's trying to kill me. And what that is basically saying is that the only enemy that I fear is me because I find that I'm always messing up. I find that when I want to do good, there's a me that just wants to do bad. When things are going well, there's a me that just wants to mess things up. So the me inside of me that I'm fighting is once I can defeat and unify with that me, then I can really be me. The thing is, I can't really kill me because it's still part of me. So imagine an enemy that you can't kill. When I lie and sleep, I'm sleeping with the enemy, and the enemy is on the in of me. So that's the kind of thing I've been talking about. Where, just makes you think about life.
Hmm. yeah, yeah, it's been a really fascinating talk. It's been really inspirational. I think of anything that I take, that I hope anyone would take after listening to you, is about the fact that when the fire is there and you hit the crossroads, there is only one direction that you could have taken, and it's always amazing to see the fruits of the labor. And I'm sure family and friends who were threatening to lock you up in a mental asylum back then are probably, hopefully, they're proud of you now and what you achieved.
Oh, they're so proud now. They're like, oh, that's my boy. That's my boy. My teacher was like, we always knew he was going to make it. We
Yeah,
always knew. Liar.
yeah,
They should have told me then.
yeah.
They failed me.
I'm sure they'll say, "Look, we needed you to
To
show."
become yourself. Yes, we wanted to. We were really mean because we knew you had it in you.
Yeah,
We knew.
yeah.
We were like, ah, Togo said he was a very interesting. We knew he was very smart. Oh yeah.
But I've definitely appreciated the time you've taken. And as I said,
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to put the link in, and so people can follow you, see what's going on, and
Yeah.
as I said, there's a reflection about the race divide around the West, and I think there's a sense of, well, maybe we've underappreciated their cultural stuff, we've been stealing it, but let's try and actually utilize it. So I think there'll be a open move and avenue for people to come find talent like yourself and your crew and try and showcase it around the world. Yeah. So I really appreciate the time, and we'll definitely be in touch after all this.